Why nothing is happening? Just a minute.
Yeah, yeah, it's done.
Okay, Manvi, we
Wow.
are ready to go live. So we are live, and please go ahead, Manvi. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste to all our live audience. Welcome to the webinar series, episode 4 of Lifestyle for Environment Living Udaharans. And we are doing the dialogues with living udaharans of life is one of the engagement program of G20 C20 Life, that is Lifestyle for Environment. Today we have with us Sushri Aditi Deodharji, and I would like to introduce our speaker a bit. So, Aditi Deodharji holds a master's degree in industrial mathematics with computer applications, and she has worked in IT for few years. In year 2014, some like-minded people like her, they founded an organization named Jeevit Nandi, that is Living River Foundation. Their objective is river, river rival through people participation. And this foundation is a way to become people's movement, and that's their dream. In 2016, she created a forum with a goal: not a single dry leaf should be burned in India. The forum has now become a collaborative community where people also shares seeds, saplings, ideas and advice. We will hear more about her and her environment friendly lifestyle. So not taking much of her time, over to you, ma'am. Thank you. And namaste. Welcome again.
Thank you, Manavi. It is really great to be part of this event. So I'll just start sharing my video.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
So the vision of brown leaf is not a single dry leaf should be burned in India. And exactly what is that and why we are saying that leaves should not be burned. So we will just discuss it as we go along. So we'll start with this photograph. Everybody must be familiar with this. This is a very common vision or visual during winter months in any city across India. That wherever you see or wherever there is any horizontal surface, you will see the layer of dry leaves there. And as you can see, the dry leaves are lying on a concrete surface or non-soil surface. So, why that is part of the problem or a major problem, we will discuss it along the way. So, first, let me share with you what we are going to cover in this presentation. So, first, why trees shed leaves? So, why leaf fall happens in the first place? Then, what happens in nature? Then why it has become such a problem? Means it's a very old phenomena. It is not something that has suddenly started. Trees have been shedding leaves for many years or since they are evolved. So why suddenly it has become such a big challenge or problem or concern for us in the city? So we'll discuss that exactly what changed. Then why burning leaves is not good? So we don't want you to just accept because we are saying that okay, you should not burn dry leaves. So we will discuss that in detail, exactly what is wrong with that approach. Then comes the major part, like if not burn, exactly what one should do. Because just asking people not to do this or that is not sufficient. We have to provide some alternative, and then we will discuss solution part in length. So basically solution part is what we did in as part of brown leaf. So I will just share that story of brown leaf with you. So that's what we did in Pune city. It has worked. And so how we can help or we can replicate these concepts all over India or wherever this challenge is exists, how this same concept can be replicated there. So we'll discuss that also. So why treat shade leaves? Uh, Typically during winter, so mid-October, the leaf fall starts and it continues till April or even May or even June for some trees. So exactly why this happens? So when we discuss leaf fall or challenge of dry leaf litter, we are basically discussing deciduous trees. So deciduous trees are what? So they become completely leafless for some duration of the year. So all trees shed leaves. So it's not specific to any some species, but evergreen or semi-evergreen trees, they keep on shedding leaves all throughout the year. But deciduous trees shed all of their leaves in a very short duration, and that's why the most challenge or dry leaf litter challenge is posed by these deciduous trees. So as far as leaves are concerned, all leaves are same for us. So there is no discrimination or distinction between these. But mainly the challenge that we face in the cities is due to these deciduous trees. So we will discuss them in detail. But whatever solutions we discuss applicable to all the dry leaves. So why treat shade leaves is it is their adaptation to cope with summer months, because as you know during summer we in a tropical region especially we have very harsh summers, and we are going through one such harsh summer, so it's very easy to relate. And the water scarcity is a big challenge during summer months, and since trees cannot move from one place to another, so what they can do is they have to manage with whatever water is available in that region. As we know, tree roots absorb nutrients and water from the soil, and then that water is circulated all through the tree body. And on the leaves, there are small pores, microscopic pores called stomata. And through this stomata, the exchange of gases and exchange of water vapor happens. And so the water that is absorbed from the ground by the root system, that is let out of the tree body through these pores on the leaves called stomata. So stomata are the openings through which trees lose their water. And so when in summer months when water is scarce and you need to conserve whatever water is available, then what is the best way to do that is just get rid of the leaves which are outlets of water. So exactly that's what trees do. So what they do is they just shade their leaves so that the outlets of water are gone, and so whatever water is available for the tree remains with the tree. And so this is the adaptation, and so this is and that's why it starts around winter, so they are preparing for this coming summer months. And so this is the typical cycle, that you have these green leaves, then this leaves start drying because the tree is preparing to separate them from their body, and these leaves fall, they fall on the ground, and then eventually the new leaves come and this cycle continues. So what happens? So this is a typical picture where there is no human intervention. Since there is nobody to sweep away these leaves, so these leaves that are shed by the trees are falling, are lying on the ground around them. And so this is a typical picture where there is no human habitation. So what happens in nature is this, or what it's supposed to happen in nature is this, that the leaves fall, they remain on the ground, and so what they do is they form a protective layer over the soil. So this adaptation not only helps the trees to conserve water, but it helps soil to conserve the moisture. So these leaves typically remain on the ground, and when the rains come, when monsoon arrives, these leaves decompose and nutrients from them are returned to the soil. They are dissolved in the water and returned to the soil in the form in which the root system of the tree can absorb them back. So that is a typical cyclic process of nature. That there, as we have many times heard, that there is no concept of waste in nature. So waste exists wherever there is human habitation. Where we are there, there is waste. But in nature, there is this concept itself does not exist because there is a cyclic process. So output of one system serves as input to some other system, and this cycle continues. That these same resources are used and reused indefinitely. So these nutrients which the trees has taken from the soil are returned to the soil when these leaves decompose, and so those nutrients are again available for the tree. So there is no need to get new nutrients from outside. And the circular system, when it breaks, when that system becomes linear, there is waste. So that we will discuss in the next part. This is a typical cyclic process where trees shed leaves. The leaves remain on the ground around them for all throughout the summer. So because of this protective layer over the soil, the harsh sun rays cannot directly reach the soil. So the soil also is able to retain the moisture. Also, there are many insects that find shelter below these leaves. And eventually, when monsoons arrive, these leaves decompose and nutrients are returned to the soil, and tree is ready for its next cycle. So this is how what happens in nature, and this has been happening in nature for time so long, and it was never a problem because it was a cyclic process. Then what happened is when the cities start, even cities still, if you say maybe our grandparents' generation, still this leaves was not a problem because there were bungalows. Each bungalow had a backyard where all there used to be a ditch where or pit where this all these leaves, kitchen waste, everything used to go. But now with our current system, if you take a look around our city or your premises, we see that there is almost no soil left. So all the soil surfaces are covered with either with buildings, paver blocks, or footpaths, roads. And so these are all non-soil or non-porous surfaces that we have. And so the nature cycle or tree cycle continues. The leaves fall, they remain on the ground, but the problem they decompose because they are biodegradable. But the problem is they cannot return to the soil because there is no soil. Soil is kept under these concrete surfaces. So they remain on the concrete surface, and they it's not a very good sight to look at. They cause inconvenience. It becomes some slush or mulch that is lying there. So it feels dirty, and that nature cycle or cyclic process that is broken because these leaves cannot go back to the soil where they belong. And so that's why this system or process has become linear. And so rather not only for dry leaves, for any other thing, these linear systems are the problem. Because what happens, even we create something, we utilize it, and we throw it away. And where we throw it away, this is the step where waste is introduced. And that's why, as I said, that wherever there is human habitation, there is concept of waste. And so it is applicable to non-biodegradable things like plastic, but it is equally applicable to biodegradable things like leaves. So those leaves are biodegradable. If they are not able to return to the soil, then they are going to cause inconvenience, and they are then termed as waste. So many times we hear that we have the leaf garbage. So that's what happens, that it becomes waste because it is not going able to go back to the soil. So this is the typical challenge, that leaves are on the non-soil surface. So the process is linear. And as I mentioned that any horizontal surface during this winter season is covered with a layer of dry leaves. So as you can see, this is typical. This rooftops are there, that AC in the window, even there is a layer of dry leaves there. And there is no future for it. It is going to end up as waste there. Then what we see typically, we see during winter, we see that the leaves are collected into a heap, and then that heap is set on fire because the leaves are dry, so they burn off very easily, and this huge heap of dry leaves gets converted in or reduced to a handful of ash. So it seems a very convenient option, burning of dry leaves, and it's a very seems easy way to get rid of dry leaves. And let us discuss why it is not such a good idea. So as you know, life on Earth is carbon based. All living things are made of carbon. So whenever any organic matter is burnt, carbon dioxide is the result. As we know, carbon dioxide is one of the greenhouse gases. It adds to global warming. If the leaf pile does not get sufficient oxygen, then the result is carbon monoxide. Global warming potential of carbon monoxide it's way more than that of carbon dioxide. Means even that is a greenhouse gas, but it is more harmful when it comes to global warming. Carbon monoxide is also it's actually called poisonous gas. Its exposure to it is not good for our health also. The constant exposure of it eventually reduces oxygen carrying capacity of red blood cells in our body, and it is very dangerous gas. So it's not good for our health, it's not good for the environment because it causes global warming way more than carbon dioxide. And as I said that there are nutrients are present in these leaves, which are when the leaves decompose, they are returned to the soil. So when we burn away these dry leaves, these nutrients are also destroyed. So burning of dry leaves it's not good for the environment, for our health, and for our soils because the soil is losing its nutrients, but it is not getting them back. Also, the smoke itself is not a very pleasant thing. We have all experienced it. That smoke it's very suffocating. It's not gonna. It burns eyes, and it's not really good for our lungs. And so, burning of dry leaves is a health hazard, environment hazard, and so it should be avoided. And then next, the other strategy that is used is these dry leaves are dumped somewhere. So typically, yeah, and burning of dry leaves poses a fire hazard also because everywhere during these months, dry leaves are lying there. And so once fire is started, open fire, open burning, then we really don't have control over how it spreads because there are many dry leaves exist around the area. And so the fire can spread anyway and it can become controllable in very short, uncontrollable in very short span. So it is also fire hazard. Then the second strategy that is usually adopted is dumping those dry leaves in municipal waste. So why that is also not very good idea is first thing, all across India, all cities are struggling with waste management. We know we are producing way more waste and our cities are not able to cope with that. And how cities cope with that waste is collected through the city and some of it is composted, but a large portion of this waste goes to the dump yards. And what happens in dump yards? Dump yard waste is actually dumped there. It lies there in heaps. And these dump yards are usually situated on the periphery of any city. So first thing, it's not really fair. We are actually dumping our waste in somebody's backyard. So it's not a very good strategy morally also. But now, if you remember, around 4 to 5 years back, the then CM of Maharashtra had declared that in Maharashtra now there is no more space left for a new dumping yard, and all these cities are going towards that. There is simply no place left to create a new dump yard. So first thing, it's morally wrong anyway, dumping waste somewhere. But now we don't even have that option because the new dump yards cannot be created. Then what is challenge with dump yards is that biodegradable and non-degradable all waste is together there, and the biodegradable component of that waste is going to decompose anyway. But since there are huge heaps are there, waste is deposited every day on top of the existing one. So the lower layers are compacted because of the weight from the layers above. And because of this compaction, no air pockets are left. And so, though they decompose, that decomposition happens in absence of oxygen because the weight is really compacted and the oxygen or air is squeezed out of them. And so, that decomposition we call it anaerobic digestion. And it is also a natural process, but when digestion happens in absence of oxygen, it is not decomposing, it is called rotting. And the result of that is gases like methane and hydrogen sulfide. So wherever there is dump yard is there, you can sense approach of the dump yard from some short distance, because there is a very very bad smell, foul smell. That hydrogen sulfide gas has a very foul smell. Then the second one, methane. Methane is a odorless gas, but the problem is that again it is a greenhouse gas, and its global warming potential is again more than carbon dioxide. And also problem with methane is it's highly inflammable gas, because and biogas, that methane is used for cooking, so it's highly flammable gas. So if you remember a few years back at Devnara, the very major dump yard near Mumbai, there was a fire and it continued for weeks. So, and this is the challenge with all the dump yards, that fires break out because of this methane. So again, we come to that burning of dry leaves or dumping dry leaves as part of municipal waste collection, both are not very good strategies. They are often implemented to get rid of dry leaves, but they are not really advisable. So then we come to the solution part. So okay, so agreed. That not people do not argue about that, because burning is not pleasant for anybody, even for the person who is doing it. Burning is really not easy, because that heat, that smoke, that is always irritable. Even if the person doesn't know all these things, the smoke itself is not pleasant anyway. But people do it because they don't know what to do with that, and volume of the dry leaves is so huge that is overwhelming. So now we discuss exactly what alternatives exist. So I will tell you a story about how I came across these alternatives. Uh, so in my backyard, we have a huge tree, and it's very pleasant to have that tree there, because lots of birds, lots of squirrels are there, and it's really heaven for birds and for us also, except for winter months when the leaf fall starts. Since it's a huge tree, leaves shade by it pose a huge challenge for us. So about a few years back, we were doing the same thing as everybody else. That we used to collect those leaves in a heap and we used to set fire to it. Then, when I read about ecology, when I did a course in ecology, I realized why we are doing this. Leaves are biodegradable. Why we are burning them? They are anyway going to decompose and they are going to return to the soil. So why not that natural process take place? Why we are doing this? So I decided that at least I can put stop to this practice in my premises. So for the lady who sweeps our premises, I asked her that just collect the leaves in heat, but don't burn them. And so I was happy that okay, I have implemented solution. I have prevented dry leaves from burning, at least in my premises. About a month passed, and that lady came to me and said that now that hip is very large, so exactly what you're planning to do with it, because now everybody will start complaining. And that time I realized that okay, just asking people not to do something is not sufficient. We need to provide an alternative. The challenge was I did not know what the alternative was. So my thought till then was only that the leaves are biodegradable, so why to burn them, let them decompose on their own. But now I had to find a solution. So I took help of social media. So I just created one message and I shared that message on all the WhatsApp groups where I was a member. And so I asked in that message that okay, I have the leaves every week around 4 to 5 gunny bags of dry leaves are collected through that leaf fall. So what alternatives are there, or what one can do with all these dry leaves? So I got many responses for that. Some people suggested creating biochar or creating briquettes out of it, and there are many solutions. One particular message attracted my attention. It was from Sujata. She is the lady with me in this photograph. So she said that she can take away every single leaf shed by my tree. And that response was quite interesting to me, because frankly for me those leaves have become a big headache. And this lady was saying that she can take away each and every leaf shed by my tree. So I went to a nearby grocery shop. I got empty gunny bags. Then I collected those dry leaves in gunny bags. I had just 5 gunny bags ready. The very next day, she came to me and collected those dry leaves in her car dicky. Then I got very much curious because, as I said, this leaves was a challenge for me, and this lady had come all the way to collect those dry leaves. So I got really curious exactly what she does with those dry leaves. So I decided to visit her place. So what I saw that this is the leaves that I had kept ready, and this is just a very, very small glimpse of Sujata's garden. You can see strawberries, you can see cabbages there. Name any vegetable and it is there. So here is Sujata's story. So Sujata lives in a bungalow society in Pune city. And there is a plot next to her bungalow which she owns and which was vacant for many years. So when Sujata realized that lot of chemical fertilizers is used in the vegetables that we eat, and also lot of pesticides, and some of them contain very toxic chemicals. So those pesticides are sprayed on the vegetables that we eat. She decided that she will grow her own vegetables. So she belongs to a farmer family. So she already had that knowledge, so decided that why not we eat chemical free vegetables. So she decided to cultivate her own vegetables for her own family, her brother, and her brother-in-law's family. And so she already had that plot, and so she decided to utilize that plot. The challenge was that since that plot was empty for many years, when the construction of other bungalows happened, the builder had used it as a dumping ground. So all the construction debris from other construction was dumped there, and so there was virtually no soil left in that patch. Now the challenge was for her was to create that soil, and as you know, buying soil is a very, very expensive affair. And also ecologically, it is really not advisable because we are taking away soil, depriving some area of its soil. So she did not even find it morally correct to buy soil. Then what was the solution? So what she was doing was she was creating that missing organic matter using these dry leaves. So when dry leaves decompose, so they provide that organic matter. So as you know, many people even create soilless gardens. Their gardens don't have even a pinch of a soil. They all use this compost of dry leaves and kitchen waste. So that is also possible. So in her case, she was doing that. So whatever soil was there in that plot, it was there. But what was missing, she was doing it using dry leaves. And that's why she had promised me that she can take away each and every leaf shared by my tree. But when I saw her garden, I realized even if I donated all the leaves from my tree to her, still her requirement was much more. Means those 5 gunny bags of leaves for my premises, it was a huge challenge because I did not have much soil left. But there, it was so easily accommodated in her plot. So I realized that she is going to need more, which she collaborated. That she was constantly looking for dry leaves. So then what is the problem? Because dry leaves for 6 months of the year, dry leaves are everywhere. They are available in abundant quantity. So what is the challenge? The challenge is though dry leaves are available in a large quantity, getting clean dry leaves is a problem. So as you can see here, because dry leaves are considered as garbage or waste, so wherever there is a heap of dry leaves, you must have observed it many times, people start dumping garbage in that. So there are plastic bags, bottles, gutka packets, anything. You can find even diapers and sanitary napkins are found in these leaf heaps. So that is the challenge. So though leaves are available in a very large quantity, getting clean dry leaves is a challenge. And so when along with Sujata, there are many people in Pune. Now there is this growing trend of grow your own food. Bangalore has been pioneer in that. Delhi is also very active in that. But now in Pune, many people are utilizing their empty terraces to cultivate vegetables for their family. So this typically terrace gardeners because it is very challenging to carry a bag of soil all the way to the terrace. So dry leaves make a very good option or alternative there, because they are very light to carry. They do not pose any threat to the structural integrity of the building. And so this typically terrace gardeners use dry leaves in very large quantity. So just like Sujata, all these terrace gardeners share the same thing, that they are constantly looking for clean dry leaves. Also, many people do not find it comfortable to go by roadside and collect dry leaves. Many people even do that, and kudos to them. But for many people, it's not really dignified thing to go by roadside and collect dry leaves. So their demand was they wanted dry leaves, clean dry leaves in respectable manner, and they were not getting it. So, when I connected the dots, I realized that there are people like me who have dry leaves, and for them, it is a challenge what to do with all those dry leaves. And at the same time, in my own city, there are people who want those dry leaves and they are not getting those dry leaves. So it was a eureka moment for me. So it's a classic economics problem, right? That there is availability, there is requirement, and both exist in the same city. That was the best part. And so what was missing? So what was the problem? That there was no link connecting these two people. So there are people who have dry leaves, there are people who want dry leaves. Only need was to bring them on one platform. So this is my loud thinking, that this is what this is a process I went through. That okay, there are people who have dry leaves, there are people who want dry leaves. So how about connecting these two? So how about connecting availability with requirement, supply with demand? And then I realized that why not I create a platform where these two type of people will come together and exchange leaves among themselves. So that was my first thought. I really, as I said, it was a eureka moment for me. So I said, why not do that? But then I had my doubts that, okay, means theoretically this all looks very nice, but why people would do that? Because I myself had done that, and I would tell you it's not a very pleasant or easy thing, that collecting those dry leaves into gunny bags. It's a quite laborious task actually, and instead of that, my people might find burning dry leaves easier. So I had my doubts, but I said that just I have this idea, just let us try it out. So what I did, I took it for testing, and I created one Facebook page. I created one free website initially, and I just started talking about that concept on social media. And the response I got was phenomenal. People like that idea. And so that was very encouraging for me, where I realized that burning dry leaves was nobody's first choice. Nobody was hell bent on burning them. They were Many of them were doing it because they could not think of any other solution. But when I offered this solution or an alternative, people were ready to take that extra step of collecting dry leaves into gunny bags and keeping those gunny bags till there are takers who collect them. And it was really a happy moment for me, where I realized that my assumption was wrong, and people were ready to take that or go that extra mile. So with that newfound enthusiasm, then I created a WhatsApp group. WhatsApp group even today remains our main communication tool. And then idea was this simple, that people who have dry leaves, they are supposed to collect dry leaves in gunny bags, and they have to ensure that there is no garbage mixed with dry leaves. So it is their responsibility. And then the people who one day just drop a message on our group that okay, I have so many dry leaves. Gunny bag is our major because it's very easy to perceive. So I have so many gunny bags of dry leaves ready. This is the area and this is my contact number. And then the person for whom that area is convenient, that we call them leaf donor and leaf taker. That leaf taker responds. They decide a mutual convenient time, and Then leaf taker collects the dry leaves. All this happens without any financial transaction. So it's a very collaborative movement where premise. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sure. Thanks. So premise is very simple that one person has some resource which is surplus and some other person needs it, and that's why this leaf exchange takes place. Uh, and one more thing I realized that when I started this, when I decided not to burn dry leaves in my premises, my only assumptions at that time was that dry leaves are not waste. So they are not garbage. So why to waste them or why to throw them out or burn them? But when I saw Sujata's garden and when I interacted with other terrace gardeners, I realized dry leaves are not only waste, but they are a great resource. And so that my journey from dry leaves being not waste but a resource, so it happened with all other brown leaf members also. So many of them had already had a garden. They were buying fertilizers from outside, but they did not know their leaves it themselves can be very good fertilizers, and so they were burning their leaves off, or eventually they started donating those leaves. But when they realized that dry leaves themselves can provide many of the nutrients which they were buying from outside, so these leaf donors became leaf utilizers. So that was also one paradigm shift that we had in that group. So this is how the brown leaf movement started. So vision is very simple that not a single dry leaf should be burnt in India. And with every dry leaf that goes back to the soil, we are inching towards that vision. And then mission is to help people manage dry leaves in eco-friendly manner. And so very first year when I conceptualized this movement, we exchanged 10,000 gunny bags of dry leaves, and this number kept increasing. Now it has reached lakhs. So because many people now they take away those dry leaves for their farms also, where they have farms nearby. So they take away these. There many initiatives are there working towards greening our hills. They also utilize these dry leaves in very large quantity. Here is just a glimpse of the terrace gardens that are blossoming on these dry leaves. Some of them, as I mentioned, are completely soilless garden also. They carry only dry leaf compost and kitchen waste. So what are these alternatives? So we started with donation because it was very easy, or it was a low hanging fruit, I would say. So for the person who was burning of those dry leaves, donating them was a easier option to achieve. But our hierarchy goes like mulch, compost, and donate. This is a threefold strategy that we advocate. But hierarchy is that mulching is the first option we advise. Then composting. Mulch and compost both are used to manage dry leaves within our own premises. If at all mulching and composting is not possible, there are many cities, senior citizens who are living alone in the bungalow. For them, it might really not be possible physically to manage dry leaves or do mulching and composting actively. So, or for some societies where there are trees in hundreds, there is surplus leaves. Even after mulching and composting, they have surplus leaves, so they choose to donate. And third option is donation. So what is mulching? So as I mentioned that our aim is to recreate that cyclic process. That cyclic process is broken somewhere. It has become linear, and that's why dry leaves have become a challenge in our city. So what we do is simply we repair that broken cycle and create that cyclic process so that soil to soil principle of nature works. And so how we do that in a city? Because in city, as as I shared, constraint is that there is not much soil, there is not much space left. So in nature, what happens that leaves fall, they make a layer over the soil around the tree. Now, wherever it is possible to keep as much as leaves possible where they have fallen, it's a really ideal thing. If you have such patches in your society where there is not much human movement. The leaves can be there as it is. It's really good, but unfortunately, that is not the case often. So what we do? So wherever we have a garden, where we can create this. What happens in nature, we can see. And so how we do it? So we just take dry leaves and we create a layer where, as you can see here, they are vegetable beds that they have created, and they have just covered the soil with layer of dry leaves. So for soil, there is a rule of thumb that soil should always be covered. And so it can be green mulch, so it is grasses or creepers that appear during monsoon. And for rest of the months, it can be brown mulch like dry leaves. So idea is that you should cover the soil. So why is that? So if you observe that if there is a soil where or in a wooded area where the soil is always covered with layer of dry leaves or grasses, if you observe that soil, you will see that that soil is moist. And if you take a handful of it, you will realize it's teeming with life. It's dark, it's moist, and you can see that many insects are there and many microbes you cannot see, but they are there because that soil is supporting life. But compare it or contrast it with the soil that is at the roadside, so you can see that soil does not look black, it looks whitish. Also, it is very very hard. The soil that is constantly exposed to sunlight hardens. It becomes very compact because there is no moisture left. If there is no moisture, there is no microbial activity, there are no insects, and that soil really becomes hard, and it you just look at it and you will realize it's lifeless. There is nothing left in that soil. So idea is that if you want the soil fertility to be intact, the soil has to be covered with green or dry or brown mulch. So that is what we do. So wherever we have plant beds, or even if you have two, three pots in your balcony or window pane, that is also fine. So you can do mulching there. And so whatever soil is there in your pot or plant bed, just make sure you cover it with layer of dry leaves. If you can crush those dry leaves with hand and spread it, even better, because then they will decompose faster. If you cannot do it, just cover them with dry leaves. So, if you have pots, you will observe when you water the pot, the water that enters the pot very fast, it goes out of the bottom. And when it is running or going away from the pot, it is muddy. So, you can see that it is carrying away soil along with it. So, every watering that we do, we are losing soil and nutrients from that pot. But if you do mulching, then that layer of the dry leaves, it breaks the velocity of the water. So the water that enters the pot gradually percolates in the pot. And so you will see there is no runoff from the pot. So that is one added advantage, because this mulching layer prevents soil erosion. So nutrients and water is preserved. So you will observe that you conserve water over time, because you will need less frequent watering for the pot, because the roots of the plant, they don't need water, they need moisture, and this mulching layer ensures the moisture remains in the soil longer. So that is one way of creating that cyclic process in nature, is we are sending the leaves back to the soil. Only thing, they are not going back to the exact point where they fall, but we are choosing a convenient spot where they can go back to the soil. So it's not exactly what happens in nature, but it is closer to what happens in nature. Here is the photo. So the same mulching layer that the photograph I showed you a photograph, so you can see the happy cabbages there in that mulch layer. So when these leaves decompose, the nutrients are automatically returned to the soil. So it is like a recurring this thing for us, because whenever that mulch layer is going to decompose, the new nutrients are added to the soil. So it keeps on happening. You have need to keep on doing mulching for that. So many leaves go back to the soil over a period of 1 year. Then the second option is composting. So again, here it's nothing alien or nothing different from what happens in nature. We are only making slight modifications to the process that happens naturally. So in nature, what happens, as we discussed, the leaves fall, they remain on the ground, and when monsoons arrive, due to rains, these leaves decompose and nutrients are returned to the soil. So in city now it's not possible to keep all the leaves where they fall, and also we cannot wait till monsoon because our leaf fall starts around mid October. Monsoon is going to arrive in June or July of next year, so we cannot have all those leaves lying around like this till monsoon. So what we do, because we have space constraint and we cannot be patient enough for monsoon, so we accelerate this process. So we select a spot that is convenient for us, and there we decide to carry out composting. Instead of doing it exactly where the leaves have fallen, we take those leaves to some convenient spot and we accelerate this process. So what monsoon is going to do, we are doing that ourselves. So there are three methods for composting. One is pit. It is a very age-old method where you dig a pit, you deposit all the dry leaves there. Then there is one method, pile. Pile is just you collect those dry leaves on the ground, create a pile or heap, and you carry out composting there. And these are very cost effective method. Pile composting is almost free. For pit composting, you have to get the pit dug, so that is the expense. But these methods are not very favorite among city dwellers because that composting project does not look very neat and tidy. So many people, what they prefer in societies is enclosure composting. So as you can see in the picture, there are mesh enclosures are done. So enclosure composting is like, it looks good, it looks tidy, and it feels as if some serious project is going on. So I have seen that though pit and pile composting are cost effective, many people go for enclosure composting. So that is your choice. So enclosure composting is also very good. You have to create some enclosure or buy some enclosure. That is the problem. But all three methods are fine. One can adopt whichever method is convenient for them. So exactly what we do in composting. So no matter which process you or this method adopt, composting process remains same. So I will just give you an example. So what exactly composting is? It's like making curd from the milk. So we all are familiar with that process. So what we do, we have milk. So we heat it up. So we warm the milk. So we never do it at room temperatures because the bacteria need a certain temperature for their growth. So what we do, we warm the milk. When that milk is not very hot, not very cold, it has to be warm, and then we add half a spoonful of curd to it. So what that curd contains bacteria, and when we add that spoonful of curd to the milk, warm milk, then this bacteria start multiplying, and so eventually the entire milk is converted into curd. So that is the process, and it is the same process for composting, because many people I have seen that they are skeptical or scared of composting. So I always provide this example that it is simply like making curd. And the best part is that all the hard work is done by the bacteria or microbes. We have to simply ensure that conditions are right for their growth. Because in curd also, we don't exactly do anything. We just ensure that the milk is at proper temperature for bacteria to grow. That's all. And all the hard work is done by the bacteria. So same goes for composting. So in composting, there are two players. One are mechanical decomposers. So they are typically the insects that we find in the pile. So we'll talk about insects also because that is area of concern. And then second are chemical decomposers. So they are microbes. So bacteria, protozoa, or fungus. And so mechanical decomposers break down organic matter in small pieces so that these chemical decomposers can digest that matter. So those both are required for successful composting. And again, they the mechanical decomposers, we don't have to do anything. They just arrive on their own. So wherever there is any matter to be decomposed, these insects arrive there without our invitation, without we doing anything. And so actually it's a free service provided by nature to us. Only thing is those insects, so there are white grubs are there or black soldier flies are there. They are not very attractive from our standards, and many people find them creepy. Many people don't like the sight of them, and many people are scared that they will enter their house and will create havoc for them. So again, I will tell you that all these insects are compost insects. Even there are small cockroaches in that. They are called wild roaches. So they are actually sometimes they can wander in our house by mistake, but it's not really their favorite place because they need that organic matter, and so they are not going to leave even if they enter our house. So actually they might by mistake sometimes enter the house, but they are not going to invade our house, and they are happy to be in the composting pile. So there is nothing to be scared of these insects. They are our helpers actually. If we don't see any insects in the composting pile, we should be worried in fact, but not otherwise. Then microbes are there, they are anyway invisible to our eyes, so they continue their work. And only thing for us, like in case of curd, our responsibility is to ensure that conditions are right for these microbes to survive and grow. So what are these conditions? In case of curd, we saw that milk has to be of certain temperature. So in case of composting, we call it ATM. It is easier to remember. So it's aeration, temperature, and moisture. So aeration is what that, as I told you, that if decomposition or digestion happens in absence of oxygen, the process turns anaerobic, and output of anaerobic process is hydrogen sulfide and methane. Hydrogen sulfide has a very foul smell. So we want to avoid that anaerobic digestion. And so requirement is that pile, composting pile should get sufficient air. And so if we are doing it in pit or pile or enclosure like this, it's by design itself it is taken care of, because the water logging cannot happen in this case. If you are doing it in a drum or something, then there is a risk that water might get deposited at the bottom, and then that water takes out air from there. There is no room for air because all the cavities are filled with water, and that is where the process turns anaerobic. And almost 80 to 90% projects fail because of this aeration problem. And that's why we suggest this pit pile and enclosure. In all our enclosures, if you see, they are mesh enclosures, so there is no risk of water logging. So that it's taken off your mind. So you don't need to watch out actively for water logging, because it won't happen anyway. But if you are doing it in some drum or something, just make sure that you poke holes at towards the bottom of the drum so that there is no water logging. Your composting pile should be moist but not wet. That is the criteria. Then from ATM, that T is there is temperature. In tropical country like ours, temperature is not really a concern. That sun is taking care of it. In northern India, Delhi, in winter months, it could be a problem where temperatures really go down. But again, not to worry, because that composting process might slow down for that duration. But when the temperatures rise, the process will pick up. So temperature is really not a concern for our country. Where there is snow, it is a concern. But for major part of India, it's not a concern. Then there is third part, moisture. So this is the only factor that we need to actively monitor, because if you are doing only with dry leaves, as you know, dry leaves are really dry. Means if you say kitchen waste, then you can see it's almost 80% water. But in case of dry leaves, there is hardly any moisture in them. So moisture is something that we need to provide. And so if we are doing it with kitchen waste, again, that is not a problem. So you create alternate layers like sandwich. So you have dry leaves, then you have kitchen waste, dry leaves, and all that required moisture will be provided by kitchen waste. But if you are doing only dry leaves, then because the quantity wise dry leaves will always be more. So if it's only dry leaves, then just like you water your garden or plants, you have to water this pile also. And you can reuse the water. So whatever water we use in the house, gray water, that can be used for this, or the water that we use to rinse rice and dal, that can be reused here, diverted here. So just watering that pile is essential. And again, the rule of thumb is that it should be moist, not wet. So only that much water should be given. And so this ATM of composting is something, once we take care of it, your composting is successful. And any challenge that exists is till you achieve your first successful harvest. Once that is done, I guarantee you, you will be addicted to the process, because it is really nice. It's almost a miraculous thing to see that this pile of dry leaves is converted into this very nice soil, which is teeming with microbes or teeming with life. And you can then start harvesting that compost and start using it for your garden. And one more thing, for microbes, the insects arrive on their own. For microbes, the microbes are present everywhere, in soil, in air, but we need to provide a dose of concentrated microbes to the pile to speed up the process. So we typically call it culture. So just like that spoonful of curd in the milk, it is the culture that we provide. So, what is that culture? Culture could be soil itself, the healthy soil from some tree, from below the tree. You can dig out this just handful of soil. So, healthy soil itself contains many microbes, or you can borrow compost from somebody. If your friend or any relative or neighbor is doing composting, you can just borrow compost initially. It is the only one time you will need to borrow or buy. Eventually your own compost will act as culture for your next batch of compost. So it could be soil, it could be compost borrowed from somebody, or there are some ready-made powders or compost cultures are available in the market. Again, as I said, only one time you have to do, only first time. Again, it's going back to our curd analogy. It is same thing, that only first time you need to borrow it from your neighbor. Then your own curd acts as culture for your next batches. So again, that's all. So for ATM of composting and some culture, you will need to accelerate this process. If you have this pile, pit, or enclosure, and if you have that luxury that you have enough space so you can wait for the rains, just don't worry, just keep on depositing the leaves, and choose the location where that receives maximum rains. There is no obstacle above, and that's all. So the rains will take care of it. So that is again a second strategy. If you have that luxury, you have a really large campus, then you can wait for the rains to do the work. So this is how the compost looks, and it really is a nice, fulfilling thing. And again, the quantity of compost is very less, because when the tree is growing, almost 98% of the nutrients it has taken from the air, and which are returned to the air actually. So it is only almost 2% of what the tree has taken from the soil that remains on the ground. So the even if you see the large heap of dry leaves, the common compost is there, it is simply a handful, and so the quantity is reduced. Then third is that receive donate. So that is a donation option that we discussed in detail. Then uh, in Pune city, I created this forum where now the people connect and they exchange leaves with themselves. So this is typically a snapshot of how these messages happen. That the messages from the leaf donors, messages from the leaf takers. But in your city, if you can create such a forum, nothing like it, because a large number of people will connect and large quantity of dry leaves will be exchanged. But in case you are skeptical about starting a forum, on individual level you can start this donation anytime, because as I said, as I found in Pune city, which is applicable to any city in India, as there are people who have dry leaves, there will be people who want dry leaves, and you will be surprised they will be around you. So if you just take a stroll in your lane, you will see that there's some plants are peeping from the terrace. So you will see that there is a terrace garden there. So approach them and offer your dry leaves. because believe me when I say that these people are also looking for dry leaves. So it's not only concern for people who have dry leaves, it is equally challenge for people who want dry leaves. So it can a very nice collaborative exchange that can happen. And so if you can create a forum, nothing like it, but you can start this leaf exchange on individual level and you can stop burning of dry leaves immediately. So mulch compost are anyway advisable, and if you want to do that, then we have a guide. We have a series of 15 videos on our site. So this is the link, and you can download that PDF guide. You can go through the video if you're more comfortable with that format, and you can learn how to do mulching and composting. Or you can, if you have any difficulty, please feel free to write to us. This is our email ID. So mulching and composting you can start anytime. Donation also on individual level you can start anytime. So stopping burning of dry leaves can start immediately, and we are just email away or click away if you want any help in that. And so that's what I urge all of you, that let us all together ensure that not a single dry leaf is burnt in India. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was
Thank
really very inspirational. Ma'am, can you just stop that presentation? If you're
Yeah.
unable, then I will ask our technical expert.
Yeah, actually, because I'm not able to see that option to stop the
No,
thing.
no issues.
Okay.
Rahul, no issues, ma'am. We can continue, and Rahul will just eliminate that.
No
So,
problem. Yeah.
thank you so much. So, ma'am, this it was really very helpful, definitely. And the Brown Leaf Association that you have created, the Eureka moment for you, as well as even I was thinking the ideas can be just explore in anybody's mind. And the time it happens, it strikes that inch, and it's like what will be the you can say that how do you create that connection, that channel, and taking that much pain on your own. That's why we call you people as a living udaharans, definitely. So so yes, ma'am, and we have some questions coming from our audience, and
Okay.
but it's like compactly associated. So though you have explained it a lot in a means the best way I can ask you from the like from the stomata to like what the leaves does, why they shed their leaves. Matlab, even a layman can easily understand what you are trying to imply. And still still I would further try to just happen some few questions,
Sure.
ma'am. So
Sure.
our first question is why dry leaves should not be burnt.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, I explained here that when any organic matter is burned, the result is carbon dioxide. First
Definitely.
result is smoke, which is not very pleasant for us, but carbon dioxide is the result. And carbon dioxide is one of the greenhouse gases, which
Yeah.
adds to global warming, contributes to global warming.
Yeah.
Also, when the pile smothers, when there is not sufficient air for it, then the result is carbon monoxide, which is even more harmful because it is not good for our health. As I said, that it gets
Right.
attached to RBCs and it reduces
Yeah.
their oxygen carrying capacity. So, exposure to carbon monoxide is not good for us, and its global potential is much more than carbon dioxide. So,
Right.
for environment, it is even worse. It is not good for our health also. That's why
Yes.
burning is not. And as you know, in cities, live in such close quarters that is smoke is also, and the particulate matters that fly from that, where you must have seen that. So they
Yes.
also can lodge in our lungs. So that's why, in all these respects, it's a fire hazard, environment hazard, and health hazard. That's why it should
Definitely.
not be burned.
Yes, ma'am. So, second question is, what can a person do? individually to prevent dry leaves from burning? Like, as a person, if I want to start or initiate this particular moment of yours, and if I want to do something and I am not associated with anybody, so at
Right.
a macro level, what I can do?
Right, absolutely. It's a fair question actually. One thing is on individual level, you can do it. As I said that you don't need to have a big garden or something. Even if you have a few pots in your balcony or window pane, you can start doing mulching immediately. So if you have dry leaves available nearby, so just bring them home and start mulching for your balcony pots. So as I said, that soil should never be left uncovered because then you're doing damage to that soil or life in the soil. So you can start mulching immediately. You can start composting immediately because
Yeah.
we all have kitchen waste at home. And so you just combine kitchen waste and dry leaves. And again, it doesn't have to be on very large scale. So if you have a broken or leaky bucket at home or some old matka, just start in there. So whatever you have, just start in there a small scale. Once you achieve your first harvest, then your confidence also grows, and then you can do it on large scale on society level. And also you can start this donation in your neighborhood. So you don't need to create a city-wide forum immediately, but as I said, that you will find that there are people who are doing terrace garden in your lane also or in your neighborhood. So just look out for those people, strike a conversation with them, and start this leaf exchange with them. And so they would be also happy. As I said, that leaf takers and leaf donors both exist in all neighborhoods in all cities.
Right, ma'am. Right, right, right. So, ma'am, if you have started in a Pune city and you are connecting with the people around that, so our Unnat Bharat Abhiyan has pan India spread. So if like somebody wants to start in another city or wants to connect or wants to understand more, is there any way that we can just collaborate or something like that with those people if they are getting a query or they can start in other cities?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will be very, very happy to help if anybody wants to do that. Rather, for brown leaf, I appeal to people that if you are like the concept, please copy and replicate. I don't want that ownership. I don't want this brown leaf itself to grow bigger. You just copy the concept and start your own
Yeah.
initiative. And I have written a ebook for that. I will share a
Oh,
link with you, or I can share the ebook with you. I would be very happy if you can distribute it to the people who
for
want
sure.
to create. And I
Sure.
will just like to take this moment, Manavi, because many people have this concern that first thing is that I don't know everything about this. So how can I start? And the second is I'm an introvert. I don't know how to talk to people. How can I start? So I will tell you, you are seeing the biggest introvert in the world. And so if I can do that, anybody can do that. So that's what I will say. Even I'm very happy. I'm a technical person. I'm very happy to be behind my laptop working alone. But
Yes,
I
I understand.
started this, and once I started this, I found many helping hands. So that is also in that book I have written that. So I would again say that if you are skeptical about it, you just take the first step, and the help is always available. I am available, just a click away. So I will just urge people to take that first step and just start.
Definitely, ma'am, definitely. And this is also a kind of we are starting a movement kind of thing, and bringing people together, talking towards each other, working for the environment, and that can definitely change for sure. So, yeah. And can it be implemented on a larger scale?
Yeah, sure. Because it's a distributed model, so it's not a centralized thing that where we are bringing every resource together and we are doing it at one place. So it's a distributed model, and it can start at any scale and it can achieve any scale. So that is the beauty of it. And actually, right now, what we are doing is we are just targeting the privately owned premises. But if municipalities provide their infrastructure, it can even spread to city level very fast, and it can be very easily done actually with existing resources that have without adding any load to their existing system. So it can be really done at large scale.
Okay, okay, ma'am. So, I would also like to know more about this ATM. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
Can you
so
just
that Yeah, ATM is just that it's very easy to remember. That's why we have created that. So ATM is aeration, temperature, and moisture. So these
Right.
are three essential conditions for successful composting.
Right.
And for aeration, I said ki that the air should be there because we don't want that process to go anaerobic because I said that problems with anaerobic are.
Mm.
And so aeration, and as I said that for pit pile and enclosure, we can create enclosure such that this condition is automatically met by design itself without we worrying about it. Or if you have some drum or something, then just
Mhm.
poke holes and ensure that water is going out successfully without getting logged in that container. So that's it. Temperature,
Okay.
as I said, we are lucky. We are in a tropical country, and so temperature is not that much of a problem. It's
Right.
automatically taken care for us. And moisture is something we need to actively manage. That is the only factor that we need to manage actually. And that is one additional work for us. Where as we water our garden, we need to water this composting pile. So that when there is moisture, the microbial activity continues, the microbial growth continues, and that's why moisture is
Mhm.
important. And again, if
Right.
you have that luxury where you have space, then just wait for the rains to do the work. That is also one more option.
Right. One more question, ma'am. Whenever we are going to do such an activity, if I'm going to start in my garden, so is there like not a threat of like insect coming around it and creating means if I live like in a metropolitan city,
Hmm.
we don't have a bigger space like everybody is living in a small areas, and they have a small balcony, and they are putting the things over there. They are trying to make the compost and everything like that. So due to those things, if the insects and everything are coming, is there any way to we can just prevent that happening from happening or something like that?
Sure. No, I understand your concern. And actually, many people are actually scared of these insects. That's why they are skeptical about composting. So let me tell you that these insects are or they this digest organic matter and they are compost insects. Even the cockroaches that are present, they are different from other domestic cockroaches that we get. They are not the same.
Okay.
And these
Okay.
cockroaches cannot survive outside composting pile, so they really don't have any interest in entering or invading our house as such. Again, there are grubs are there, or there is one particular insect called black soldier fly. So
Okay.
what happens that they are dedicated composting insects, so they are not going to come out of composting pile. Only the time when they come out is if the composting pile is in sunlight and there is too harsh a sunlight because they all are shade loving insects. So we
Yeah.
come to know about their presence only when we water the pile and they get disturbed and then we see. Otherwise, they are doing their work quietly. But if that
Okay.
composting pile is constantly in sunlight, then they might
Right.
come out looking for shade. So easy thing is to do is just cover that pile with a newspaper or something so that there is shade and that those insects won't come out. But there is no risk. Means even the especially people are scared about cockroaches because cockroach is a menace for a house. But again,
Right.
you actually, I would urge people to observe these insects so that their fear will automatically gone. That these cockroaches are different from the domestic ones, and also any other insect you see, just observe them. You will understand that they are very happy in their composting pile. So don't be concerned about them. And I know it will take some mind shift, mind shift change to be comfortable with them, but they are our helpers, and without them we will be drowning on our own ways. So they play a very important role. Only thing, from our standards, they are not very good looking creatures. That is the problem. But
No,
just
no,
be
no
comfortable
issue.
with them. It's
Yeah.
not a concern that is there.
Okay, okay, okay. So, ma'am, uh, uh, last but very important questions. What inspired you to
What?
have
Sorry.
such an inspired you to have
Oh.
such a big initiative?
No, actually, it was just an idea that I felt compelled that, or I felt that I should do it because that sight of leaves getting burned was painful for me. And after, as I said, that I did that course in ecology from Ecological Society, that was a paradigm shift. Till then, I had seen the leaves getting burnt every winter, but it had not bothered me. But after doing that course, after learning about interconnections in nature, I found that it's not really good to do this. And it was just too painful to watch that and do nothing about it. And so I started with my own backyard, where I, at least in my backyard, I will do it. And then just that idea grew into it. Actually, it was not some the scale that at which it happened, I had not really envisioned. And I would say that that organic growth happened because of all the my community members. Means I was just a what starting point. The scale that it achieved is because of all the community members and all the supporters across India.
Right, right, ma'am. It is very inspiring for us too, because day to day life we see multiple things happening around us. Though we don't put much of the effort to understand what the thing is going on actually, or
Yes.
how can we do that paradigm shift that you are talking about. But still, these initiatives, definitely the living udaharans that we are talking about this webinar series, are giving us such examples. Every time in every episodes what we are having, we take away some or the things that we can inculcate in our life as well. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for inspiring us. And definitely we'll get back to you with our team, whosoever wants to connect with you. And I inspire our audience to just do, if you want any, you have queries and everything, definitely we will share the ebook and ma'am, the Brown Leaf website and everything. She has made several videos, like 15 to 20 videos, which I have been going through today. So that was also very inspiring, that at the COVID time period videos that you made and everything. So yeah, we will be sharing with every one of them. And Aditi ma'am, really thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and thank you for joining with us. That was really really a good episode, ma'am.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much
much.
for making me part of it. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
Namaste.